I would like to thank the organizers for having me and all of you to staying till this bitter end. And the topic of my talk is molecular double Auger decay. So I guess we all know what Auger decay is. Consider a neon atom, you create core hole, and there is a lot of energy available. So in a very fast process, the core hole will recombine and another electron will be ejected to the continuum. And if you collect those Auger electrons, you will see that you will get discrete lines which correspond to the electronic structure of the atom or molecule or whatever. But it's not the whole story. Specifically for neon, you will find out that in about 6% of events, 2 electrons will be emitted into the continuum. And here there is even enough energy for 3 electron emission, but that's not what I want to talk about. So what is the mechanism of this 2 electron emission? So the normal single electron Auger decay rate is basically given by this simple lowest order perturbation theory expression, which is basically Fermi-Golden rule, where it's given by the coupling of the initial core hole state and the final dicationic state with 1 electron in continuum. And if you go 1 order of perturbation theory higher, you can write a second order expression which will be quadratic in this coupling and will look like basically double transition through some intermediate state, but not all of those intermediate states are real, some are virtual, so it's better to reinterpret a little bit, and you will find several possible decay mechanisms. One of them is the one I've already described, the cascade mechanism, which is sequence of 2 normal Auger emissions. So first, some intermediate state is populated, which is above the triple ionization threshold, and it decays again. Yeah, so, but this is not that interesting. More interesting is so-called direct emission of 2 electrons, which has 2 origins. One of them is shake-off, which corresponds to the situation that when the first Auger electron goes away, the remaining molecular or atomic orbital shrink, and another electron can actually find itself in continuum. And in this process, in contrast to the normal Auger and to the cascade, instead of having discrete lines in the spectrum, here you will have continuous energy sharing between the 2 electrons, but specifically for shake-off, 1 electron will be very fast and one very slow. And the second direct mechanism is knockout, which is basically some inelastic scattering. The primary Auger electron is trying to escape, but it hits another valence electron, and the energy is redistributed and both goes away. So again, it will be continuous energy sharing, but typically more equal. So what is known about double Auger, if you study the literature, you will learn a lot about double Auger in rare gas atoms, and you will see that in neon it accounts for about 6%, and if you go to heavier atoms, the double Auger branching ratio will get higher, but here I want to talk about molecules, and there is very little known until quite recently in the work of Hultros and Raimund Pfeiffer here, who measured double Auger branching ratios in very large sample of molecules, and what they found is this very interesting picture where points of different color actually correspond to the same core hole in different molecules. So for example, the blue it's all carbon 1 s whole, but in different molecules. And you can see that the double Auger branching ratio goes from about 6% in methane to nearly 30% if you replace all hydrogens by chlorines. And what is here on this x-axis is number of valence electrons, and you see that pretty much regardless of the core hole, the double Auger branching ratio depends linearly on the number of valence electrons. And it makes sense because just statistically the number of tricationic channels depends cubically on number of valence electrons, while those of dicationic channels depend just quadratically. But it's still quite surprising that it holds the same linear dependence for all the core holes here. So that's quite surprising. And speaking of theory, there is essentially none. So that's where we stepped in. And for some time I've been developing so-called Fano-ADC method, which we used mostly to study interatomic Coulombic decay, but of course also Auger. And because of our recent development with Vitaly Averbuch of the ADC, so-called ADC 2,2 scheme, we could attempt to describe also double Auger, because double continuum is in principle present in this scheme. So what we do, we use Fano theory of resonances, which describes the continuum wave function as a discrete square integrable state embedded in several continua. I will cut the story short. Ultimately, you arrive at formula for the decay width, which is very similar to the Fermi golden rule. The big difference is that here it's a function of energy. Yeah, it's not, you don't have the energy conservation necessarily, but if you are high enough above threshold, you will again get exponential decay, where the decay width or decay rate is given by evaluating of this function at the energy of the resonance. So what we now need is to describe, somehow represent the initial core hole wave function and the continuum wave function, which represents the different final states. And for this, we use ADC in so-called intermediate state representation, which is blend of perturbation theory and configuration interaction like expansion. In configuration interaction, you would describe the ionic system, ionic wave function in terms of so-called configuration state functions derived from Hartree-Fock single determinant ground state. In ADC, you replace this reference ground state wave function by perturbation theoretically corrected wave function. And then the expansion is the same, just here comes this ground state. So your basis of configurations is already correlated, and what you get is much faster convergence of the CI expansion. And this is actually quite flexible. I'm running very low of time somehow. So it allows actually to develop a scheme in which the Hamiltonian matrix is such that the one hole ionization main state and two hole one particle ionization satellite states are described consistently through second order of perturbation theory, which is very good if you want to evaluate this coupling for the decay width function, because you start with single hole wave function and you end up with two hole one particle, where this one particle is some continuum like orbital. So this consistency is very important, and we actually have to include also three hole two particle type configuration, so those two particles can represent the double continuum. Okay, so what are the results? I will start with the Auger-Maitner decay width, and what I'm showing here is the total decay width for a series of molecules isoelectronic with neon, and red is the calculation, black is the available experimental data, and we see that actually, this I didn't expect, there is very clear linear trend as function of mean kinetic energy of the emitted electrons, and it's seen in both theory and the experiment, but we see that the theory has a bias to overestimate the decay width by close to 10%. So we can also calculate the Auger decay spectra, which actually are indispensable if you want to determine the double Auger branching ratio. And here is example for methane and acetylene, and we see that it compares with available experiment very well. So finally, I'm getting to the double Auger branching ratio, and let me try to reproduce this similar figure as I was showing from the experiment, so here is again number of valence electron, and what we see here, this bunch here, it's neon, water, and methane, so it's the neon isoelectronic systems, and this is the acetylene, C2H2, this is C2H4, this is C2H6, and what we see, again, the red is the calculated branching ratio, black is the experiment by Vultros and Raimund Pfeiffer, and we see that actually what we do capture the qualitative trends, but despite adding really considerable computational efforts, we did not really beat the very simple linear approximation which has been fitted to the experiment. So to conclude, I think the two main messages is that the ADC 2,2 scheme is very valuable by itself because of the consistent description of the main and satellite ionization states. It's very, very useful when you want to describe ionization in spectral region with strong molecular orbital picture breakdown, such as inner valence. And FANO ADC 2,2 provides state-of-the-art accuracy for total Auger-Maitner decay widths and spectra, and the double decay is reproduced qualitatively with maximum error of 50%. Average is better. Yeah, I leave it to yourself to evaluate whether this is actually good or bad. One thing which is not included at the moment are any effect of nuclear motion, which of course can influence the double decay. And another future development would be to disentangle the direct and cascade contribution, which I cannot really do easily at the moment because of the use of square integrable basis sets. And I would like to thank Vitaly Averbuch from Imperial College and my students Jan Schenk and Adam Chalupek, who contributed to this work. Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for a couple of questions.
Hi, thank you. Just to clarify, your Hamiltonian is not particle conserving, because if you go back to the blue part of the, I think it's a Coulomb term. There was something like S of R as this.
What this?
It's just a typo.
This one?
Yeah.
There is typo.
So what is the S?
This S?
The last one. You got the CP/CQ,
CP/CQ, yes.
CS, and SR. I'm not just.
Sorry, yeah. This really is a typo. This should be C. This S. Here, yeah.
So it's just normal, like.
It's just annihilation operator. It should be
just
C.
normal column plus this green, which
no,
is.
No, this is just rewriting. This is Fock operator, and this blue, it's the perturbation. So it's the Coulomb interaction minus the mean field, which is included in the Fock.
But how do you include this whole coupling to the continuum? I mean, your basis is like Gaussian.
Yes.
It's like
it's well, in principle, here it's not seen here. I mean, these some of the orbitals could be continuum orbitals. There is from, but they are not. I'm using diffuse Gaussian basis sets. So what I'm getting is something like you would call bound-like and continuum-like states. Yeah.
Okay.
And the solution to this problem is something I skipped, and it's where we actually use this, the decay width is a function, because we, in square integral method, we don't really have continuum solutions. We have continuum-like but still bound solutions normalized to unity. But those states, those wave functions I'm getting, they still provide me a resolution of identity in the region of space in which I need to evaluate this coupling element. So it allows me to evaluate spectral moments of the decay width function. And then I use Stieltjes imaging to recover the function itself.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, we have another question over there.
Very nice talk. I have a question. How do you estimate error bars of your calculations?
Well, there are two kinds of error bars. The error bars here apparently are not estimated properly. Yeah, obviously they are too small. It's because any error bars is very difficult actually to capture such a systematical bias we see here. Yeah. So here what I am estimating, actually what I'm looking at, is just the output of this Stieltjes imaging procedure, which gives me some discrete sampling of the decay width function, and you perform this Stieltjes imaging using increasing number of spectral moments. And basically the error bars I'm showing are determined from the, let's say, spread of the points I'm getting around some interpolation which I use to evaluate the decay width. Yes, so this somehow reflects stability of the Stieltjes imaging procedure and quality of the basis set, but it cannot reflect the bias, if there is any, of the method as such. Yeah, and for the here for the double Auger branching ratios, there is another story, and that's some uncertainty of the effective position of triple ionization potential, which of course is critical to determine the double Auger, because the double Auger is determined from direct coupling to the double continuum, but also from the population of the decay channels of normal Auger which lie above the triple ionization threshold. But if I don't know precisely where the triple ionization is, the effective triple ionization potential in the ADC 2,2, then this gives some uncertainty, and this is mostly contributing to those large error bars here.
Yeah, Daniel has another question.
Hi,
Hi.
thanks for the talk. At the last slide, you mentioned that the largest error was 50%. Could you say for which molecule was this error, and does it maybe indicate that the role of the nuclear motion?
It's for a molecule which is not included here. This is in the paper which is submitted. I studied a couple of more molecules, so this I don't really remember. But already here this C2H4 is actually not that far, because it's just about 8% is measured, and I'm above 14. So I don't really think that it's the nuclear motion. I would have to go to some very technical details, but in the paper there is deep analysis where I show that there seem to be some again some bias or some inconsistencies which are causing this.
If you were to convert the gammas into lifetime, what's the lifetime of this process roughly? I'm not sure if you mentioned.
Well, the lifetime is the lifetime of the Auger process. Yeah, it's the lifetime is given by the total width. So this is this neon here. The neon here, it's something like 3 femtoseconds.
Okay.
So here for methane we are talking 10, 11 femtoseconds, something like that.
So the nuclear motion could, in principle.
Yeah, the nuclear motion can. It does play a role for sure, but it's not behind this 30% average error, I think.
Then, thank you. Let's thank all the speakers of the session.